And so we get to the show, and you see Eric Bischoff, you see Steve Mongo McMichael, and you see Bobby the Brain Heenan. They are the announce team. We heard a lot of Mongo McMichael over the years.
Yeah.
What did you think of his very first go round as an announcer here on this first episode?
A bit rough, and obviously he sounded a little nervous. Didn't agree with some of the comments he made, especially during the Jushin Thunder Liger match and
The Ginsu knives.
Ginsu knife. He was getting chewed up by Bobby Heenan.
Oh yeah,
but I could tell Bobby Heenan was like putting himself in position to look like a fool for Steve McMichael.
And I feel like he was also holding back.
Yes, he's definitely holding back. I did like, my favorite comment was like something about riding the bench and like, oh, McMichael, you're riding the bench a lot over at the Denver Broncos. He's not never played with the Denver Broncos. And then McMichael's like, well, I didn't care if the offense was on the field most of the time. That was good for me. It's almost like Bobby didn't know football.
Yeah.
It was like kind of like a little dead air after that. But yeah, I thought he did okay. I just didn't. I feel bad talking bad about him, but we're criticizing his work. Then he's
absolutely
dealing with ALS right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really bad shape, and all the best to him and his fight. But like, we're critiquing his work here, and as of back then, I did not like it. I did not like him at all. His voice, this high pitched kind of voice. Pepe eventually would show up. I don't know if Pepe was out there with his dog.
He was he was at the end.
Oh, well, did Pepe show up
at the end of the episode?
I missed that. And then always calling Bobby the Stain. I just didn't like. I actually thought Bischoff was pretty good on this episode. And I thought Heenan was good, but yeah, like you said, he definitely felt like he was holding back a little bit as well.
Bobby the Stain and Bobby Hernia. Those are his go-tos.
Yeah.
And who can really battle wits with Bobby Heenan? Not very many.
Yeah.
But not Steve McMichael. Now, there's a flip side to Steve McMichael, though, and this is why you get him. 10 years earlier, he's on the 85 Bears. He's an absolute football star. That team in general was like the most dominating defense, but also like the pro wrestling team of the NFL. You had Refrigerator Perry, who would be in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2.
And McMichael was at WrestleMania
11?
11? Was he in the corner of the Lawrence Taylor?
LT?
He was part of that group?
LT? I think so.
That was 95, so he did WWF and WCW the same year.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, a famous football player, and that always works with wrestling. And I'm sure the idea, which eventually did happen, was that we're going to have him be this announcer, and we're going to teach him how to wrestle so that he can, because there's a moment, and we'll get to it on this show, but Scott Norton comes out.
Yep.
And McMichael just goes nose to nose with this dude. I'm just like, did you not understand that this guy is coming in and you're supposed to be terrified? Or maybe McMichael should have been off camera. He didn't have to be terrified. That could have been Heenan and Bischoff. But he also didn't have to stare this dude down who's supposed to be this intimidating guy coming into WCW to wreak havoc.
And plus, like, Norton he's a tall guy and compared to me and most people, but he's huge because he's so wide. He's a freaking tank, right?
Yeah.
But Michael's also very wide and also very tall, so he actually is looking down on Scott Norton. So Scott doesn't look that. If I was him, I would have just kind of, instead of having him go to the announcers, like kind of get in the ring, try to demand a mic, and maybe force Bischoff to go do an interview with him. And that's when Scott Norton could have talked about, I want to face Hogan, I want to face Savage, and that brings out Savage, and that's when they have a confrontation.
Mm-hmm. So the very first match, like we said, is Jushin Thunder Liger against Brian Pillman. This is, I would say, like the B- C+ version of their match. They didn't get a lot of time. It was like 6.5 minutes. Liger is post injury.
Yeah, he had that nasty leg injury.
Pillman is much thicker and bigger than he was, so he's not the quite the flying Brian that he used to be. The match was still good for the 6.5 minutes. Pillman, Jushin Thunder Liger tried to German suplex Pillman, and then Pillman turned it into a pin and held the legs and won. So it was a nice finish, and it was like a cool open to that show. But I'm sure, like all the people who thought, oh, maybe Nitro is going to be this show where we get these great matches, they were probably a little disappointed in how that match, really, like how much time they actually gave that match.
I mean, I was disappointed because I'm already comparing it to Super Brawl 2, right? They're gonna
Right.
have this great match like that again. Um, Rewatching it today, I thought it was a pretty better match than I remember. Because I remember, I was also thinking Liger, the flyer, the dives, but he was definitely changed his style after post leg injury. Did he also have a brain issue too? I believe
I wonder if that was the injury.
maybe that was the injury. I know he broke his ankle in '93. He broke it during the top of the Super J Cup, I believe it was, and then but I thought he had a brain issue, and that might have been it.
Let's
That
see. Let's
do
go
the
to
timeline on that.
his Wikipedia. Um in the let's see. Liger, let's see. Gosh, I can't find the actual injury.
Yeah.
But he did miss a year. I just can't see what he missed the year for. Because when I noticed that he came back and Dave wrote that he was back from the injury, I assumed it was the brain thing, but Dave didn't write it, and now I can't. I don't see it
Yeah.
in Wikipedia.
But
So
he by this time, definitely he transformed his style to be more ground game, more high impact, power bombs. That's when he started throwing the palm strikes and stuff like that.
mhm.
His extent of his high flying was sometime a cross body off the top rope to the floor or a splash to the ring, or that somersault he did off the apron to Liger. That was to his Pillman. That's what was kind of like his trademark he would do. But looking back, I thought it was still a good match. They get 6 minutes. They got 6 minutes. I thought I love the finish where Liger went for the German suplex, and there's a struggle before Pillman reversed it into that forward roll. I just wish there was a little more tighter on that pin on that forward roll because it looked like Liger's arms, his shoulders could have easily kicked out, but it was just the way they kind of fell to that spot. But I thought it was a pretty solid match to open the show, and you could tell Eric Bischoff probably told him action, start off with action because
Yeah.
there wasn't much. There was a little bit of selling and some holds but most of the time, like it was a lot of back and forth, and they were because obviously too they had 6 minutes. They're trying to fit everything in. Those 6 minutes still a very long time. A lot of people don't understand that's a long time to fill. It sounds like it's so quick, but man, when you get out there, 6 minutes it's pretty long.
All right, so it is we are actually close on the two injuries. So the first injury was the one that you were saying, which is the ankle and the ACL, and that kept him out of wrestling for a whole year.
Mm.
And so, but the brain tumor, I think he has a brain tumor removed in '96. It was a little bit after this match
Oh,
where he had the
okay.
brain tumor pulled
It
out.
was
So
benign tumor, wasn't it? I believe.
I think so.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, shit. He went off to have a legendary career, even for years. He just retired like a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
We saw one of his last U.S. matches in San Jose, California. Some random 6-man tag team match with Aaron Solo. My goodness gracious.
Where I also saw him would be WrestleMania 31 weekend.
Mm-hmm.
They were in Redwood City. ROH was in Redwood City.
Yeah.
And it was Samoa Joe against one of the Briscoes was the main event of that show.
Yeah.
And I went to the restroom, and Jushin Thunder Liger in full gear, except without his mask, was taking a whiz right next to me. So
Wow. Are you sure wasn't that one fan that shows up there wearing the Chucha Liger outfit?
no, because this dude had just worked and he was sweaty.
Sweating.
He was
He's like, I gotta
sweating.
pee. Everyone knows what I look like.
Okay, so The thing that you know what I didn't like is there were certain things that reminded me of the WCW weekend shows. Like they're going to commercial and they have a Sting inset promo, and it just reminded me of like the Sunday shows and how they would go out to out to commercial on the Sunday shows. I was like, let's do something different. I don't want to think about your syndicated or your cable shows with this brand new spanking show, right? Because it's supposed to
Yeah.
be exciting and young and hip and new. So I didn't like that. And so this is where we get the segment with Hulk Hogan at the Pasta Mania restaurant in the mall.
Pasta Mania.
Big Bubba Rogers has no chance because Hogan is eating so much pasta. It is running through. I think he was supposed to say veins, and then he changed to say brain. And I
Yeah.
was like, that was weird. I wonder if running through the veins he thought was like oh, people think I'm talking about steroids. I can't talk about that. I don't know. I don't know why he changed sort of in mid sentence, but yeah, he was getting fans to call and respond, and he was having the time
Yeah.
of his life.
Yeah. When I did some research on Pasta Mania, and there was just a recent article like from August of 2022. Someone wrote it. It was a decent article, nothing super in depth, but they did mention it only lasted a few months. So, and I looked it up. It's a little more further details, and from 95 to 96, basically as long as it lasted. And then I looked at, and there's like you can find a menu online, and it's like
How many restaurants were there?
just one.
That was the only one in the
Only
Mall
one.
of
I think
America?
he, I think he put his name on something. Because Hogan did try a lot of stuff. Now he currently has a restaurant in Florida or some kind of.
Yeah, it's like, he's got, like, his memorabilia, you can meet him
Yeah, you
up
can
and
buy
stuff.
stuff, and then
Yeah.
there's like the manager there is like the crazy Trump supporter or something like that. That like those stories are classic. Have you ever heard those stories?
Uh-uh.
Oh my god, it's like unbelievable. People like just totally creeped out by this dude. They just leave the freaking restaurant because he's just like, you don't need to wear that mask. Take that mask off. And they're like, nope. There's a height of COVID. He's like,
Yeah.
nope. This guy is crazy.
Oh, man. Yeah, so I was intrigued even, watching this in 2022. I was like,
You're a pasta guy.
kinda wanna try well, my favorite if I can have one meal, it is spaghetti and meatballs, but I can't have that meal, maybe but once every 5 or 6 months because,
Mhm.
I try and eat low carb. But yeah, I was like, "Man, I'll try some Pasta Mania.
I would
I'm in."
totally try some pasta mania. They're trying to see if I can find a quick menu. It's yeah, here it is. I think it's a menu right here. Where's that pasta mania menu? Oh, here we go. Pasta mania. They had some good stuff. This is my favorite. They had added attractions. They had ringside dishes, and they had stuff for little pasta maniacs. The price is like $4.99 for these are international pastas: Swedish meatballs, pasta mexicana, where the hell that is, turkey tetrazzini, and beef stroganoff, served with salad and garlic bread. $4.99,
It's not bad.
1995. But you could get like your certain pastas. You can get angel hair. What are you, a shells guy? Angel hair,
No,
fettuccine.
I'm a normal, like, spaghetti guy.
Yeah, so those are, and then you pick your sauce. So it's like the basic stuff. 4.49.
There you go.
So yeah,
You know what, though? When they saw Pasta Mania invading their space, Sbarro said, "Nah,
uh
we're gonna kill these guys."
dude, for little maniacs, pasta maniacs, $2.99. Hulkaroni and cheese,
He mentioned that one, I think, in his promo.
cheeseburger pasta, and Hulkios, whatever that is. So yeah, sound like a winner. I don't know what the hell happened, but I guess we're gonna reopen Pasta Mania.
We should. That's a good idea.
Fight Game Mania. Fight
Maybe
Game Pasta Mania.
maybe we can borrow the photo that Hogan used in that one ad that you posted on your Twitter.
I just threw that up there with no context. Just threw it out just because I was pumped to talk about Pasta Mania today on this episode.
All right. Ric Flair and Sting. classic WCW match.
The greatest hits they pulled out.
It was the greatest hits, even though it wasn't a main event match. There was no stakes.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted that. They just wanted to draw that familiar fan base who would come back to watch a Ric Flair and Sting match. And it was good. I thought it was good.
Well, if you think about it, the 3 matches that they presented were targeting specific wrestling fans. You had the Pillman Liger match is going to draw that hardcore, I guess at the time starting internet fan base, right? That wants the action-packed matches. Flair Sting is a classic WCW match. Hogan Big Bubba Rogers or Hogan Boss Man is a classic WWF match. So, if you're getting casuals that kind of come through and they see, oh, Hogan's wrestling, and they see who he's wrestling, they go, I remember that guy. He was a prison guard last time I saw him, but now he's this,
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty good strategy when it comes to the matches.
So before the match starts, Lex Luger walks down the aisle.
Yes.
In his, had to be a Z Cavaricci shirt.
Yep, he had the Z Cavaricci's in the pants on.
Respect. And so Bischoff treats him like he's an outsider, and he's like coming to screw something, coming to screw things up with WCW. And he's yelling, get this guy out of here, where. And then I think Heenan is asking like where the security guards are and stuff.
It's just Doug Dillinger walks over there. Come on, let's go.
And Lex doesn't even do anything. He's just like standing around. He's just like walking down, just almost like he's just there to wave to old friends.
Yeah.
And Sting and Ric Flair don't really, I don't know if they didn't see him. They don't really pay attention to him. And then we don't see Lex anymore. So Arn shows up in this match, and as we said, he was with Flair against Vader, and then they split up, and they're having a match at Fall Brawl against each other. And so he shows up, and Heenan's like, "Oh, these guys are fine. They figured it all out." And so you're thinking like, "Oh, maybe this is bad news for Sting." Flair has Sting in the figure 4, and then Anderson interferes. Like the referee calls for the DQ before Anderson even gets in the ring. He just like immediately calls for it.
Well, I think the DQ is because Flair had Sting in the figure 4. He was holding the ropes. Flair called over Arn to get on the apron to distract the referee so he could continue to hold the ropes and do more damage to Sting's leg. But Arn didn't do it. So Randy Anderson counted to 5 and disqualified him. So that's where he came from.
And so then Anderson jumps in the ring, and he's a ball of fire. Flair bumps before he even gets punched, like that. He's ready, Anderson just gets ground and pound and starts wailing on him, but Flair gets out of dodge, and yeah. So that was that segment.
Do you think? How much do you really remember Flair versus Arn from Fall Brawl '95? Do you?
I don't remember it at all.
Well, I remember when this happened, I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe these guys are gonna wrestle," right? Because they've been so friends for all those years. It's like it's like Owen and Brett, like brothers fighting, right? And I remember being so excited about that match at Fall Brawl, and it was a good match, but it could have been so much better. So it's still good, but disappointing. It almost came like a typical Flair match where I kind of wanted to see something different. And more of a fight or more of a brawl, or it just got basically the typical Flair match. But at the time I was like, man, this is totally cool. Them feuding, and I never thought I would see that happening. This match with Sting, though, like it was the greatest hits. A lot of the same stuff we see them do all their matches. Flair was, I mean, I've watched so many Flair matches. I can kind of see when he's calling stuff and how he's calling stuff. He's like openly, like visually giving signals, like visually in the corner, shaking his head.
Wonder though, why if those guys know each other so well?
It was weird. Like that's what I was thinking too. Like, I know it was definitely called in the ring, and like stuff in the corner where Flair is like basically tell him, Sting, come on in. When he had the figure 4 on Sting and Sting was teasing to reverse it, he slaps Sting's thigh. Okay, now it's time to go. I know he is calling the whole match because he's the heel, right?
Yeah.
It's just I could clearly see everything he was calling this time. Usually, I mean, I just got used to it, but this time around, I was like really standing out, you know. But then again, like I felt like we were talking about the Luger thing. You're saying like they didn't really react to it. Wasn't it was such a secret? Only like a few people knew. Like Bischoff, I'm sure Sting knew, right? So
Yeah,
maybe like
Sting had been trying to get him in a couple
yeah.
weeks before that.
So I'm guessing that they didn't clue in Flair, and so there's just no direction of what they should have done at that point with Luger, you know. So
So then the Norton thing happens, which we've already talked about.
mhm.
And Bischoff, Savage basically says, let's go right now. And then Bischoff says to Norton, if you want to wrestle here, you better not get in that ring right now. So then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
They cut to a Sabu video package. They had brought Sabu to do a match on a taping with the sole they didn't. I don't think they aired it. The sole reason was
They
to
aired it.
cut. Did they air it?
Eventually aired it past before this match. After
Okay.
this match took place, sorry, excuse me. He wrestled 2
But
matches.
the sole reason was so they could cut that
Forget how
futuristic video package
yeah.
with he's doing flips and stuff, and then the little colors are following him like a rainbow.
I dude, like this show, if you I know exactly where, I was super excited when I watched the show. And like, of course, you know me, you could just imagine, Garrett, how excited I was when Lex Luger showed up.
Oh yeah.
Right. I was like, yes, I was so happy he was back home in WCW, back, getting rid of the American tights and stuff. We got the whole package back. And at the time, too, I was such a big Sabu fan as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that video playing. I'm like, just going nuts. And of course, I also like Scott Norton too. I was super pumped that Scott Norton was here. So I was just like on a high after this show was over.
Okay, but what did you think about one Michael Wall Street when he did his promo?
I thought it was cool. And then the next week he became VK Wall Street.
VK Wall Street.
Yeah. But it was cool. Like, hey, we got another guy. Another guy's coming over. It just makes it felt like, oh man, if you want to come back to WCW, it's exciting.
I thought the Wall Street thing was a little weird because so you have this show and you bring in Liger, which seems a little edgy. Who's this guy? We don't know him. Then you bring back Luger and you pull him out of that WWF gimmick. So it's like, okay, this is like reality, right? There's an edge, there's a reality to this. The Scott Norton thing, same thing. There's a reality to this. Who is this guy? He's not supposed to be here. And then you bring back Michael Wall Street, which falls right back into like, 1991 WCW or, post the whole run in WWF where he is not Mike Rotunda. He's actually a gimmick. And so it was a weird fit because it seemed like they were going towards more edgy, and then they bring back Wall Street, and that's more gimmick and more like pretend. So I don't know. An interesting dynamic there.
It could have been a lot of do with Michael Rotunda's call too as well, because I remember reading an interview, or I think maybe it was one of those quote shoot interview things he used to do that they used to have all the time back in the day, all the time. But I remember he mentioned on that interview that his biggest money making years in wrestling was as IRS.
Mm-hmm. I can believe that.
Yeah. So I'm guessing like, Mike Rotunda, hey, Mike Rotunda is coming in is not as exciting as like he still probably wanted to be some kind of character. And they went back to the last character we saw him as Michael Wall Street to kind of fit similar to the IRS gimmick in some ways. He even mentions the IRS might be coming after me or something like that. But I thought like, wow, man, this just seems like they're trying to make it like, oh, this is the place to be.
He said the new generation, more like the few generation.
Yeah.
So they were taking shots at WWF throughout the show. Okay, we get Big Bubba Rogers versus Hulk Hogan. You mentioned Sting and Flair with the greatest hits. This was the Hulk Hogan's greatest hits here. With the big giant heel. He does his selling, but he's gonna come back. He wins with the big boot and the leg drop.
Yeah.
And Dungeon of Doom comes in to attack Hogan after the match. Luger saves him, and there's chaos. Like Hogan screaming at him. You hear Hogan go back where you came from.
Yeah.
Sting and Macho Man come out because Sting and Macho and the Hulkster are on a War Games team against Dungeon of Doom at the next pay-per-view, so they're kind of connected. And Luger is out here. We learn that the baby faces in War Games are at a disadvantage. They are 3 against 4 because Big Van Vader, who was going to be on that team, I think they said I think they said he went AWOL, whatever going AWOL means. But in reality, the reason why Big Van Vader is off that show is because he and Paul Orndorff got in a fight at a TV taping. I think Vader was late and he was scheduled to do some interviews, and it was Orndorff's job to get him, come on, let's get this done. And he felt that Vader was not really hustling. And so Orndorff started yelling at him, and then they started to fight. And I think Orndorff got a takedown and was kicking Vader in the face with his bare feet because he's wearing flip-flops.
Yep.
And Vader's face is all messed up. And then they both go to whomever's office to have a discussion about it. Turns into another fight. This time hands are thrown and Vader gets a punch in and lands and gives Orndorff a black eye. But Orndorff still got the best of that fight as well. So Big Van Vader suspended for that fight. And Orndorff was just like, he should come back. I'm not mad. This is for the best of the. He probably realized that he was fighting one of the main eventers on the show and beat up this dude, and now he's off the show.
I always wondered if Orndorff sucker punched him because I always heard that Vader was sitting down and being telling Orndorff I'll go when I'm ready. I'm not ready yet. Just kind of being an ass, and that's when So I was wondering because Vader's still a big guy. I know little guys can beat big guys, but I would think they're both on their feet. I think Vader would be able to kind of use his weight against Orndorff and stuff. So I don't know, but yeah, that was fun to see Vader go. But I think in the long run, it's so weird. He needed to go, right? Because after that booking 95, particularly with Vader, remember that big match we couldn't wait for? Vader, Hogan, Super Raw, or even before that, at their first confrontation at the Clash, physical confrontation when Vader picks up Hogan and power bombs on the Clash. Yes. And Hogan pops up. And that just killed it for me. And the excitement of their main event at Super Bowl that year was I was done. I was I just know what's going to happen here, and I think he just needed to go anyways, and it kind of worked out for a short time in WWF.
And then they had a strap match that Hogan actually won, but
beat Flair.
Flair was in. Flair was involved.
Flair came in. Yeah. It was that. What a bummer that was. But Hogan, it was all about the Hogan show then, and it still is. But definitely. I just wish Hogan's ego would have been checked a little bit because I think there's money to made to be the show being vulnerable against Vader and then beating him. I wouldn't be mind if you beat him at Super Brawl, but at least let you get carried out at that Clash. Be like, oh shit,
yeah. And it's a story that historically worked for him.
Yeah,
right. WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 3, WrestleMania 4. He doesn't. Macho lays him out in the hot and the back where Elizabeth is on the bed. Macho lays him out. So
maybe just Hogan in January just has a wacky brain because the year before, wasn't it Hogan and Savage versus Kevin Sullivan and the Butcher, and Hogan was selling, and to get Hogan to hook up, Savage had to go to the top rope and drop an elbow on him. So maybe something with January clashes. Hogan just is funky. That post Christmas celebration, I don't know.
All right, so Luger cuts a promo and says that the reason that he's back is because this is the only title that means anything in professional wrestling. He wants a shot at Hogan, whether it's today, tomorrow, 5 years from now. He wants a shot, and he's sick of playing with the little kids. Wants the big boys.
Yeah, with the big boys play. That's right.
So Hogan, in a Hoganish way, puts him over as you deserve everything you've gotten. I've been following your career for all these years, and he wants to give him a shot next week. And so as they're agreeing to this thing, Bischoff goes, "It's been signed." And I was like, "How?" Like they've just mentioned it in the ring. How did it get signed? We needed the Tony Khan placard
That's where
for the
Tony got it
match
from, I
to
guess.
say the match is on.
Yeah, how they sign it just so fast. Yeah, I hate that when it happens now in AEW or yeah, so goofy. And I was like, I couldn't believe we're putting that on free TV. But I get it. They're trying to get people to make Nitro, get people to think Nitro is the show to be, and you know they would do a lot of times at Nitro. They would promote a big match like this, and they would just do enough to have it, but they would save the bigger stuff. I don't think Luger ever had. Oh yeah, he did. Road Wild or Road Hog Wild, whatever it was, where Hogan regained the WCW title over Luger after Luger won at that great Nitro moment when he beat Hogan for the title.
Was
That
that
was
in
pretty.
Detroit? I think.
Trying to remember. I remember it was a massive reaction. We talked about it for the
Yeah.
the Lex Luger biography show.
Yeah, the documentary.